Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this special edition of Land Auctions, How to Prepare and What to Expect. I'm your host, Carly Jacobson. I'm glad to have three fantastic experts with me today. First, I have Travis Smock, a land broker with People's Company, to share insights and tips from someone inside the auction world. I also have Megan Mitchell, a financial officer here at Farm Credit, who works regularly with producers to prepare for and finance parcels won in auction. And finally, I have our chief appraiser here at Farm Credit, Kirk Manker, to share how we can help prospective buyers evaluate how much they would consider bidding at an auction. All really great skills here. Travis, welcome. Thank you for taking some time away from your busy auction schedule to be with us today. I'd love for you to start with explaining the different types of auctions and how a seller determines what strategies they will use.
As Carly mentioned, my name is Travis Smock. I'm with People's Company. We are a land brokerage firm that handles well over 100 auctions a year across the country. With that, we've become pretty well versed in all the different types of auctions out there. I've seen a little bit of everything all across the Midwest where a lot of you folks are based. So one of the first questions we get, maybe even before, what kind of auction type is it, is how did this end up at auction? And so a lot of times an auction is decided upon because it's a very high quality farm. And we just feel like, as sellers, as fiduciaries to our client, that would maximize the value. Other times it could be set up in a trust that way, set up in an estate where it is required to be sold at auction. And sometimes even that auction type is set up in a will or an estate or in a trust. And so with that, I'll kind of get into the different auction types that you might run across as you're looking to buy a farm. One of the more popular ones now, becoming increasingly popular, would be the online only type sale. There's a couple different options of online only. You may have seen an auction that you have a regular, 10 o'clock start time. You have an auctioneer that cries the auction and everything is done virtually. There's also the timed online auction, which would be kind of more of an eBay style auction. That's pretty popular now as well. Gives everybody the opportunity to bid along, and then it has a set close date and allows people to bid completely online. In-person auctions, obviously, that's the oldest one in the book. You have an auctioneer up there, not myself. Nobody would want to hear me trying to cry an auction, but a lot of very good auctioneers out there that will cry an auction where you rent the local community hall. Even more popular now, or in addition to that, you have the hybrid option. So you have the in-person auction and a hybrid option where people can bid online if they're out in the combine, or if they're down south or for the winter or on vacation or anywhere else. You can still participate in that auction. Within those in-person auctions, you have your traditional auction, which is if you have 4 tracts, you sell at tract 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Or you could have the buyer's choice auction method, which would be sold as a price per acre. And the high bidder, after the first round of bidding, would pick which tract or tracts they would like. So they could choose all 4 tracts and the auction would be over, using my previous example, or they could take 2 tracts and then, say tracts 1 and 4 are still left, and that process would start over again. Another option that you've seen probably a lot of times, especially a lot of attorney auctions, end up being a sealed bid. There are 2 different types of sealed bid auctions as well. The first one would be just a one chance sealed bid. So everybody submits their offer and it's kind of a one and done scenario. The high offer is taken or countered sometimes. The other option would be you get invited back. And so with that one, usually they take the top 5 bidders, come back into a room, and then kind of duke it out amongst themselves to decide who the winner is going to be. Another auction type you've seen probably across the Plains states, not as popular in Iowa and some of the I states, I guess, but that'd be the multi-parcel auction. And so with that, you can bid on any tract at any time. So your bidder that only wants to buy a 40-acre or 80-acre parcel can bid on the parcel they would like, and you might have an investor or large farm operator that's interested in buying the entire portfolio, and everybody bids against each other. At the end of the day, that's a much longer auction process, but it does kind of squeeze all the money out of the room and give every single person in the room the same opportunity to buy. So those would be our main auction types. I think we're going to hand it over to Megan here.
Thanks, Travis. It's helpful to hear about the different types of auctions. oftentimes we don't know about all the differences. So knowing what to expect is important. I'm going to turn it back over to you, though. I want you to explain a little bit about how is this auction going to work? Can you talk to us about that, please?
Yeah, one of the main things that we selfishly ask for as an auction company is we would like the bidders to reach out to the company, and understand exactly what that process is going to look like. And so with that, understanding the terms and conditions is extremely important. Every auction is unique. Every property is unique, as you know, and the terms and conditions, might be different for each particular auction. You might have first those different auction sales types, but you might have different closing type options. You might have, one might be a very quick close in 30 days, and you might see a 60 or a 90-day close. And obviously that's something that's, very important. If the farm is being leased or not is extremely important. If it is leased, if you get the income or if that stays with the seller. And so there's just a lot of different things that can be spelled out through those terms and conditions. Also, you'll want to know your bidding options. So, can you only bid in person, or is there an option to bid online? And then, it kind of goes down to whatever you're most comfortable with, but you can talk through that, with a trusted advisor or with the real estate broker that's handling the deal. And then also understand how that technology works if it is an online bidding platform. We always encourage people to get logged in early. It never fails that if we have an auction at 10 o'clock in the morning, somebody is logging in at 9:59, and then they're wondering why they haven't been approved yet. And obviously, to keep the integrity of that system intact, we want to make sure we talk to every single bidder. So we always ask people to log in ahead of time. If it's an online only bidding platform, maybe put a bid or two in so you understand it, kind of in that last half hour or hour rush where you might see the prices come up. Also, people like to kind of determine their strategy and how they want to bid. I think a lot of people have, different thought processes on what's better or worse. And I don't know that, bidding really fast or waiting till the end really has any advantage necessarily. But you do want to determine, how you plan to bid. Some folks like to bid online while sitting in the room, so they understand kind of what's going on. They see everything around them, but they may not want somebody to necessarily know that they are the ones bidding on it unless they become the high bidder. Other people want to sit around like-minded folks. They might want to sit around their trusted advisors, their lender. You might want to sit close to the back of the room where you could hop on a phone call with a spouse or with a business partner. And so, figuring out where you want to sit in the room can be pretty important. And then, when to bid. Again, selfishly, we prefer everybody to bid right away, so that we know, we don't waste anybody's time. We're not sitting there all day. But different people have different thoughts on when to bid. Sometimes people like to wait until the reserve has been met, but we always encourage people to bid now, bid often, is the term that one of our auctioneers, Jared, says all the time. And so that, that kind of separates everything and gets the ball rolling. And that way, everybody's not sitting in the room for too long. They can move on with their day.
Travis, something else I was wondering about. I think that usually you'll see auctioneers take breaks during the auction. People should know they can ask for breaks as well, right?
Absolutely. And that kind of goes back to, sitting in the back of the room in case you need to hop on a phone call. We understand as auction companies that it's a very, very big decision, if you're deciding to buy a farm or not. And so if you need to give, take a timeout, you just give one of the bid assistants a signal. Maybe don't raise your hand all the way up because you might end up accidentally bidding on the farm. But if you kind of give them a timeout signal or hold up a phone or let people know that you need a little bit of time, or even if you're in the room and kind of want to huddle together with a few neighbors and make a decision together, we absolutely allow those breaks to happen. And a lot of times before the auction, as an auction company, we'll announce if there's going to be a break or not. Those buyer's choice auctions, typically you don't see a lot of breaks because you don't need a break in between tracks because everything's being sold right away. But a lot of times if tracks are being sold separately, or they're different types of farms, then we give everybody a break and some time. But again, that kind of goes down to one, reading the terms and conditions, and then listening through when the auctioneer is talking about the terms and conditions and how the sale is going to go at the start of the day. With that, Megan, I think you had a few other things to talk about what to expect the farm to sell for.
Yes. We always get the question, how much is that land going to bring at auction? And I wish I could answer that question, but nobody knows. Thankfully, we have a knowledgeable appraisal team here at Farm Credit Services of America and Frontier Farm Credit. Got some resources available. Kirk, can you talk to us a little bit about the information we're collecting?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Megan. Like I say, my name's Kirk Manker. I lead the appraisal team here at Farm Credit Service America and Frontier Farm Credit. Our appraisal team has approximately 85 team members. That we're primarily tasked with valuing the real estate and chattel assets that secure our loans. But as part of that, supporting values on our collateral, we collect a lot of real estate information. We do probably 5,000 to 7,000 real estate appraisals a year, and probably collect, analyze, and verify 7,000 to 10,000 sales with that. And as part of that, we provide that information to Megan as a lender and other customers that come in to kind of give an idea of what something might be worth. And so as part of that, I provided some information on this is what our Power BI tool looks like. And this is what Megan has access to. And if you look across here, there's a lot of information. And this is for Plymouth County, Iowa, which is northwest Iowa. And the reason I chose that is I grew up in Woodbury County, just the county south of that. But Woodbury County has had a lot of activity this year. And it's primarily a cropland county. So I thought for simplicity of information, I would use that. And if you look at this, what this basically tells you is that there's been 25 sales that have taken place in 2022 since the beginning of the year. And 24 of those have been cropland farms. And you can see that the range of value on those cropland acres has been 12,500 to 26,800. I realize that's a wide range, but it goes to show the quality of the county or the soils across the county. But it does show that there's an average of $19,000 an acre, which gives you a pretty good indication. But we also break that down and analyze these sales on a productivity point, soil productivity. And so we go down into even the details of how much is it on a CSR2 point, which is an indicator in the state of Iowa. But I still want to stress, and Megan has said this previously too, it's really up to you to decide what to bid. And this just gives you an indication. So with that, Megan, I'll give it back to you.
Thanks, Kirk. Well, that's great. There's a lot of things to do as you're preparing. The part where I would come into is once you kind of know your maximum dollar amount of what you're wanting to pay for that property, then you would work on getting a pre-approval with a lender. And I would suggest getting multiple pre-approvals even, just to make sure that you want at least one going into the auction to make sure that you have your finances in place. An auction is unique that it is not subject to financing. If you are the winning bidder, you are buying that farm. So you want to make sure that you've done your pre-work and have that covered. So to get a pre-approval, what we would need some information from you, basically your financial information, a balance sheet, which would include your assets and liabilities, the things you own, versus the things that you owe money on, and then your 3 years of tax returns. I need all the schedules. So all 3 inches or whatever that is, we need the whole thing, all those taxes. And then I would also need information on the property you're looking at buying. We're going to calculate some repayment capacity. And so we would need to know, what is that land? Is it farm ground? Is it pasture? Is it recreational? What is it? And what is the income potential that land can provide back to you? We're going to calculate that when we're running numbers and running payments. So get us and any lender your information, get a pre-approval so that you know that you have that established. I would also suggest that you would review it with your accountant as well. There's oftentimes people want to make sure that you just need to know the tax implications if you were the winning buyer. Oftentimes people want to know, what is the depreciation what can I depreciate? The fences, the buildings, what's the tax benefit to owning this? And then also maybe review it with your attorney. So sometimes people, for estate planning purposes or liability or whatever, they're going to want to take title to that property in an LLC or a trust. You're going to want to have a conversation with your attorney to make sure that you've got that plan in place. Again, if you are the winning buyer, things are going to happen pretty quickly. The last thing that I've got on there is giving me your maximum dollar amount. When you're asking for your pre-approval, you don't wait for me to tell you how much you can afford. I need to know from you what you're willing to pay. Because if you're sitting there in the auction, it's moving very fast. It's quick. You want to be sure that if you could get it, if you could bid one more time, raise your hand, you want to make sure that you got that approved. That information stays between you and I don't tell Travis. He doesn't ask either, but I'm not going to tell him what your maximum amount is. That stays with us. And hopefully you get it bought for less, but we just want to make sure that you have financing approved for whatever amount you're looking for. So once you've got your pre-approval, now it's auction day. What happens?
Yeah, that sure would be nice, Megan, if we knew what every person was going to bid going into the day.
Yeah.
It would lower our stress level a little bit. I'm sure the sellers as well. But yeah, auction day. So kind of going back to a few of those, tips that we talked about before of, where do you want to sit? How early to get there is another question we get. You'll find most people don't show up to an auction until 10-15 minutes before that 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock start time. People have other things to do during the day, but you can get there a little bit early. There's usually some good coffee, some donuts, some cookies, something to snack on. And so, we always encourage people to come early enough to ask us any questions that they might have. And then also, going back to where you want to sit, if you want to sit at the front so you can really understand and see and hear everything going on, or sit at the back so you can step out and make a phone call. Those are all good things to think about. One other tip that I wanted to bring up is we always encourage people to look at every tract in an auction. So, a lot of times you might have your typical, 80-acre auction or 40-acre auction, but other times, especially in estate type situations, there may be 300, 400, 500, 1,000 acres there, split up into 4 to 12 different tracts, maybe more. We always see people that get really stuck on 1 or 2 tracts. Maybe it's that tract across the fence row, or the one that they've been driving by every year for 30 years, wishing that they owned it. But we encourage everybody to take a look at every tract, because especially in those larger estate sales or larger portfolio sales, it's inevitable that 1 or 2 of those farms may sell under the market, when a couple of them may really take off and surprise everybody. And if you pay attention to exactly what is for sale and kind of have a number in mind on each of them, you have a lot better chance of buying something that could really help you out long term. So I always encourage everybody to look at that and figure out how it may fit into their operation. One example I have, I won't say his name, but a good friend of mine, him and his brother were looking at an auction here in Northeast Iowa a few years back. This is when the local market was probably about $10,000 an acre, and they had a 40-acre farm next to some family land that they really wanted to own. I think they pushed that auction to $12,000 or $13,000 an acre and didn't get it bought. And there was an 80-acre tract across the road that sold for $8,100 an acre that had the exact same soil types on it. And so, that kind of goes back to, you get so stuck on that one piece or really needing that piece. I think for $5,000 an acre, they probably could have picked the planter up and drove across the road. But, that just goes back to that preparation and, talking through that with your lender. Megan, when she's talking through things, she's going to give you a dollar amount, or, give you a kind of a leeway to decide how you want to spend that capital. And so something definitely that you want to pay attention to. At the end of the day, if you're the last one raising your hand, you are the winning bidder. So next thing, obviously, you have to sign a purchase agreement with a big number at the end of it. That part's probably not quite as exciting as winning the bid. But a few things that you're going to want to make sure you have covered. Megan just went through a few of them. Understand how you want to take title. So meet with your trusted advisors ahead of time. If you're going to create an LLC or S corporation, or if you have a trust, know exactly how that's worded, how you want to take title there. Make sure you have, your earnest payment, know where that's going to come from. You also want to have all the contact info for any business partners you might have, your lender, any trusted advisor that you're going to send a copy to, if it's your attorney, your accountant, or anybody else, and just make sure you have all of their contact info that you can give to us. That way, when we're sending out, that signed purchase agreement after the seller has signed it, we can send out one email. It's a lot cleaner, and nobody's trying to chase that down later on, to decide where it needs to go. Especially in some of these quicker close scenarios, it's great to have all that information right away. With that, I think Megan has a few other items.
Well, Travis, I wanted to talk about that earnest money deposit a little bit more. Sometimes it's generally 10% of the sales price that you have to give the day of the auction. Sometimes people have that money just sitting in their bank account waiting for auction day. There's oftentimes that they don't. So if we have your pre-approval and your permanent financing in place, like approved, we can cover that 10% earnest check until closing. But you have to let us know right away that we need to be covering it, because we're going to have you sign a temporary note to cover you until closing happens. So just want to make sure that you have that little detail that's pretty important covered as well. But otherwise, celebrate. You just became the most important person at the sale. If you win that, people will be coming up to you. They will tell you congratulations. Other lenders may come to you and say, hey, we'd like a chance at your financing. Or, if there's a pivot irrigation, you might have a irrigation development company ask you if you need a new pivot. Lots of things can be happening at that moment. It can be very emotional and hard to believe sometimes. So if you are the winning buyer, now what do you need to do? So you need to get me or your lender a copy of the purchase agreement. That's going to have all the details of the sale on there. So we'll have the legal descriptions, we'll have the close dates. It calls out what title company or attorney, whoever's handling the sale. All of that will be spelled out in the purchase agreement, and especially the entity names. So something else I wanted to mention on that, oftentimes, because it happens quickly, usually 30 days, the closing is when it becomes all yours. People may not know what entity they want to take title to the property in. You can close it. We can close the property in your name. And then say a year from now or something like that, you're doing estate planning and you want to change the title to the land. We can change the name. You can change that name on that land anytime and will not affect the terms of your loan. So that's nice to know that. It'd be great to have it done right away, but at the same time, if there is flexibility, there's options down the road that if you would want to change title for some liability or estate planning purposes, you can. Because we have a knowledgeable and our own appraisal team, we typically get our appraisals done within 7 days. And I kind of joked with Kirk before that. I'm like, wait, do we want to tell people like Travis that we can move that fast, right? And so we said, yeah, we do, because that's what we get it done that quickly. So, but as a lender, we're the ones that are ordering the appraisal. We're verifying the title work, just making sure that when you own that property, you get all rights to it. We want to make sure that it's all yours and that there's nothing out there that you're going to have to deal with later. We'll also be talking about your loan structure. We want to make sure that it's set up for you. Our loans have the ability, you can do monthly, semi-annual, or annual payments. So there's a lot of options that way. So if you sell cattle once a year and you get your paycheck once a year, we want to make sure that loan payment comes due after you receive your income. So there are a lot of options that way. You get to choose your payment dates. You also get to choose, sometimes it makes a lot of sense to split the loan. Like if you have plans to do something different or something, you could have one loan, you could have multiple loans. If you wanted part of it on a quicker pay down or something like that. So lots of options to work through. And really, you don't have to choose that until almost about a week before closing. So you can get pretty far in the process before you have to pick a rate and pick a term and know what you're doing there. When it's time for closing, the lender usually meets you at the title company or attorney's office. That happens even faster than the auction. I think you sign papers and then people say, congratulations, you got a farm. So after that, you usually take a drive, you go out, you kick the dirt and you say, hey, you're all mine now. So that's kind of fun for you. But yeah, congratulations. You just bought yourself a farm.
That's great. I appreciate that. And it's such a great look at the process. And I know there's a lot more questions out there. And in fact, we've got a couple good ones in the hopper right now. And I'm going to jump to like the question that everybody really wants to ask, especially like Kirk and Megan. And I mean, all three of you, Travis, as well. What is going on with land values? What can you tell us about where we're at right now in the climate and what's going on?
Yeah. So we in Iowa specifically, really track the market, being an Iowa-based company. So we track every auction sale across the state. Our appraisal department does, and with that, we've seen the prices decline just a little bit from the highest, time we saw, which was in that July timeframe. We're down about 5% or so over the last month. But I think that number is a little bit skewed because we tend to see most of our sales in that November, December timeframe. So I don't know that that's any reason to panic by any means. I know the record land sale in Iowa just happened a couple weeks ago, and I think last week there was a record land sale in Indiana. So, obviously prices are still extremely strong, especially really high quality farms. I mean, that seems to be the pieces that are really selling at higher than ever. Some of the maybe C quality farms, a tougher B quality farm, you might say, or something that's not 100% tillable. Those are the ones that we're seeing maybe a little bit more volatility on. It kind of comes down to the neighborhood. So if it's a place that there have been 20 land sales in the neighborhood in the last year or two, and it's a tougher farm that nobody's gonna get real excited to own, that one might end up a little bit softer. Where if it's a neighborhood you haven't seen a sale, or it's just a really high quality farm that somebody knows that they're going to want to own and pass down to the next generation, then those pieces are the ones that tend to still stay very, very strong. And I think there's a lot of optimism moving into the fall, after everybody gets their grain in the bin, knows exactly where they're at, financially on the year. It makes it a lot easier to make a decision on if you want to put some capital into land or not, rather than when the crop's in the field, it's a lot tougher decision not knowing exactly where you're going to stand.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Well, and another really great question I think it's important for us to cover is, Kirk, you had shared with us that appraisal data, that summary of information, and is that something that is available to our customers? How do they get access to that? Can you talk a little bit more about that process?
Yeah, well, thank you. And we are proud of that data. And I think the best way to go about that is work with your lender, work with your local office and your lender, and they can provide it. Because at that point, you can kind of define what you want, why you want it, and they can work with it through that local knowledge type of thing. So yeah, and even Megan said as we got ready to kick this thing off that she used that Power BI tool twice this morning with a customer sitting across from her. So that's kind of a neat story in itself.
Yeah, I would tell you that information is very easy for us to pull. It's a program that's probably unique to us that we can pull that, but you can narrow it down. There's so many ways to modify the search, whether you want to do it for a certain amount of time, certain area, anything like that. And it's very handy just to see kind of what the prices are. Oftentimes people remember that the last high sales that just happened, and they forget about all the other sales that happened that maybe weren't that top of the market ones. So yeah, those numbers are very easy for us to pull. I would say just contact anybody, any of the offices.
That's excellent. Yeah, and we do get that question a lot of times when we start talking about farmland values. And I also wanted to share there are a couple other resources in addition to your financial officer, who I do think would probably be your best resource because you can have a bit of a conversation around it. But if you're interested, the county assessor's website is always a great resource, along with any of the land grant universities. They have a lot of data on this as well. And lastly, I do want to mention that our farmland.com website has quite a few different calculators out there available if you want to calculate different like values and ROIs on different pieces of farm ground. So I would encourage you to check out farmland.com if you're trying to review a piece of ground as well for potential bidding prices. So I hope all of you have enjoyed this auction webinar today. Thank you, Travis, Megan, and Kirk, for sharing your expertise, and in the audience, thank you so much for joining us.